The manila folder slips from Elise's trembling fingers, scattering black and white photographs across the attic floorboards like fallen leaves. One image stops her heart. Her father, adoptive father, Captain Thomas Brennan, standing in an SS uniform beside a line of kneeling prisoners, his hand resting on a Luger pistol. It's late August, 1948, 3 years after the war's end, and the air in the Brennan farmhouse attic tastes of dust and decaying paper. Elise Brennan, born Elise Fournier, is 16 now. Tall and wiry, with dark hair she keeps pinned back the way her American mother taught her. She'd climbed up here looking for her old winter coat, not expecting to find a locked metal trunk shoved behind the chimney bricks, and certainly not expecting the trunk's rusted latch to give way beneath her determination. Inside, files, dozens of them, German Reich stamps, SS insignia, and photographs of the man who taught her to ride a bicycle. Before we go further, take a moment, wherever you are in the world right now. Whether it's dawn or midnight, comment below and tell me where you're watching from. And if this story grips you the way I think it will, hit that like button and subscribe. You'll want to see how this unfolds. Elise kneels on the splintered wood, her breath shallow. The photo is unmistakable. Captain Brennan, younger, leaner, his jaw sharper, wearing the death's head insignia of the Totenkopfverbände, the SS division responsible for concentration camp operations. Behind him, blurred but visible, stretches a stone wall pocked with bullet holes. She knows that wall. Her hands move on their own, sifting through the documents, service records, transfer orders. A typed memorandum dated March 19, 1944, assigning SS Hauptsturmführer Thomas Brennan to security operations in the Ardennes region of Belgium. The same region where her parents disappeared. The same forests where, according to the story she'd been told, Captain Brennan, then Lieutenant Brennan, found her hiding in a burned-out chapel in May of 1945, alone and starving, too traumatized to speak. He'd saved her, brought her to America, given her his name. Or had he? Elise's mind reels. She forces herself to keep reading. There's a personnel file, thin and water-stained, listing Brennan's assignments. Breendonk Transit Camp, Mechelen Assembly Center. Places she's only heard whispered about in the displaced persons camps after the war. Places where Jews and resistance fighters were processed before deportation east. A smaller envelope falls from between two pages. Inside, a requisition form for ammunition, signed by Brennan, dated April 9, 1944. Beneath it, a handwritten note in German, hastily scrawled, "Liquidation complete. 16 partisans, no survivors." 16. Her parents had been partisans. The floorboards creak behind her. Elise's entire body goes rigid. Elise? Her adoptive mother's voice drifts up the attic stairs, warm and worried. "Honey, are you up there? Dinner's ready." Elise's throat closes. She can't answer, can't move. The photographs lie scattered around her like evidence at a crime scene, and she is both detective and victim, perpetrator and witness. Elise? Coming. She finally manages, her voice a strangled whisper. She gathers the documents with shaking hands, shoving them back into the trunk. But she keeps one photograph, the one of Brennan in the SS uniform, and slides it inside her cardigan pocket, where it burns against her ribs like a live coal. Downstairs, the smell of pot roast and carrots fills the kitchen. Thomas Brennan sits at the head of the table reading the evening paper, his reading glasses perched on his nose. He looks up when Elise enters, and his face breaks into the same gentle smile that once made her feel safe. "There's my girl," he says in his easy Midwestern drawl. "Thought you got lost up there." Elise forces herself to meet his eyes. They're blue, kind, crinkled at the corners from years of smiling. The same eyes that looked through a rifle scope at kneeling prisoners. "Just looking for my coat," she says quietly, sliding into her chair. Her adoptive mother, Margaret, soft and blonde and endlessly patient, ladles food onto plates, chattering about the church social next weekend, about Mrs. Henderson's new baby, about the price of flour at the general store. Elise doesn't hear any of it. She watches Thomas Brennan cut his pot roast, watches his hands, large, calloused, capable, and wonders what else those hands have done. After dinner, he asks if she wants to play checkers, their Sunday ritual. She says she's tired. He looks concerned, touches her forehead with the back of his hand, checking for fever. She doesn't flinch, but inside she's screaming. That night, alone in her room, Elise pulls out the photograph and studies it under her desk lamp. She traces the outline of Brennan's face, searching for some sign of monstrosity, some hint of the evil that uniform represents. But all she sees is a younger version of the man who taught her English, who sat with her through nightmares, who never once raised his voice. The man who might have murdered her parents. Outside her window, crickets sing in the Iowa darkness, and somewhere in the house, floorboards creak as Thomas Brennan makes his nightly rounds, checking locks and windows, keeping his family safe, or keeping his secrets contained. Elise makes a decision. She will find the truth, no matter what it costs her. Even if it means discovering that the only father she remembers is a monster. Even if it means losing the only home she's ever known. But she has no idea that the truth waiting for her is far more twisted than a simple war crime, and that uncovering it will put her life in danger from enemies who thought their secrets died with the Reich. The public library in Cedar Falls smells of lemon polish and old binding glue, a scent Elise has always loved, until today. Now every shadow between the stacks feels like it's hiding something, and the elderly librarian watching her from the reference desk seems less helpful than suspicious. It's been 3 days since Elise found the trunk. 3 days of forcing normalcy, smiling at breakfast, doing her chores, pretending the photograph burning in her diary's hidden pocket doesn't exist. But this Tuesday afternoon, while Thomas is at the hardware store and Margaret is at her quilting circle, Elise has slipped away to the one place that might hold answers. The Cedar Falls Public Library keeps microfiche records of war crimes trials. She knows because her history teacher, Mr. Patterson, mentioned it last spring when they studied Nuremberg. She approaches the reference desk, where Mrs. Kowalski, a severe woman with steel-gray hair and cat-eye glasses, looks up from her catalog cards. "I need to access the war crimes records," Elise says quietly, "for a school project." Mrs. Kowalski's expression doesn't change, but something flickers behind her eyes. School doesn't start for 2 weeks. Extra credit for next semester. A long pause. Then Mrs. Kowalski stands, her chair scraping against the linoleum. "Follow me." They descend to the basement, where the microfiche machine hunches in a corner like a mechanical insect. Mrs. Kowalski pulls out drawer after drawer of tiny film reels, each labeled with dates and locations. Her movements are practiced, efficient, too practiced. "What specifically are you researching?" Mrs. Kowalski asks, not looking at her. Elise hesitates. "SS operations in Belgium, 1944. Mrs. Kowalski's hands still for just a moment. Then she selects 3 reels and hands them to Elise. "These cover the Ardennes trials. But child," she lowers her voice, Some doors, once opened, don't close again. You understand? Elise nods, throat tight. Mrs. Kowalski leaves her alone with the machine and the ghosts. The first reel contains trial transcripts from Malmedy massacre proceedings. Elise scrolls through testimony about SS troops executing American prisoners, but finds no mention of Brennan. The second reel covers deportation operations from Mechelen, and there, finally, she sees it. A witness statement from a Belgian resistance member named Georges Arnaud, dated November 6, 1946. The American officer called himself Brennan. He wore German uniform but spoke English with the prisoners before the executions. He told us in perfect German that he was sorry, that he had no choice. Then he gave the order to fire. Elise's vision blurs. Her hands shake so badly she nearly knocks the microfiche viewer over. He gave the order, but the next line stops her. Later, in the chapel, Brennan returned alone. He removed his SS jacket and hid 3 children in the crypt. He told them in French to stay silent until the British came. One of those children survived. I do not know her name. Elise reads it again. And again, he saved children. While wearing that uniform, the contradiction fractures something inside her. How can both things be true? How can the man who executed prisoners be the same man who risked his life to hide children? She scrolls forward desperately, searching for more mentions of Brennan. Nothing in the next 100 pages. Then, buried in an appendix of unverified accounts, she finds a memo from U.S. Army intelligence, dated July 1945. Subject: Lieutenant Thomas J. Brennan, OSS, Deep Cover Operations. Classification: redacted. Infiltration of SS Totenkopfverbände successful. Asset extracted May 1945. Full debrief pending. Recommend commendation for... The rest is blacked out. OSS, Office of Strategic Services. He was a spy. Elise sits back, her mind reeling. Thomas Brennan wasn't SS. He was American intelligence, embedded in the SS, pretending to be one of them. The executions, the uniform, the requisition forms, it was all cover, wasn't it? But then why hide the files? Why keep the photographs locked in a trunk? Why never tell her? A shadow falls across the microfiche viewer. Elise jerks her head up. A man stands beside her, tall, thin, wearing a dark suit and a hat pulled low over his eyes. He wasn't there a moment ago. The basement is supposed to be empty except for her. Elise Fournier, he says quietly. Not a question. You should stop digging. Her blood turns to ice. Who are you? Someone who knows what your father did during the war. His accent is faint but distinct. German, or maybe Austrian. And someone who knows that certain secrets must stay buried, for everyone's safety, including yours. I don't know what you're talking about. The man smiles, but it doesn't reach his eyes. The trunk in the attic, the photographs. You've seen them. That makes you dangerous. Elise's hand moves to her pocket, where she's carried the photograph every day since she found it. The man's gaze follows the movement. There are people, he continues, who would pay dearly for proof that Thomas Brennan was not the hero he claims to be. People who lost everything because of men like him. And there are others who would kill to keep his true work hidden. Do you understand what I'm saying? You're threatening me. I'm warning you. He leans closer. Go home. Forget what you found. Love your father and live your life. Because if you keep searching, you'll discover things that will destroy you both. And those who come after you won't be as kind as I am. He straightens, tips his hat, and walks toward the stairs. Wait! Elise calls out, but he's already gone, his footsteps echoing up into the library above. Elise sits frozen, her heart hammering against her ribs. The microfiche viewer still glows in front of her, displaying the memo about Brennan's OSS work. She reaches forward, hands shaking, and advances the film. One more frame. A single photograph appears. Grainy, dark, clearly taken in secret. It shows Thomas Brennan in his SS uniform, standing with 3 other men in what looks like a warehouse. Between them, bound and kneeling, a woman with dark hair, her face bruised, her eyes defiant even in captivity. Elise's breath catches. The woman looks exactly like the one photograph Elise has of her birth mother. The same cheekbones, the same widow's peak, the same fierce expression, and in the corner of the photograph, barely visible, a date stamp. April 8th, 1944. One day before the requisition form for ammunition. One day before 16 partisans were executed, Elise's world tilts on its axis. She'd assumed her parents died in some anonymous massacre, lost in the chaos of occupation. But this suggests something far more specific, far more personal. What if Thomas Brennan didn't just save her from the war? What if he was there when her mother died? The photograph of her mother, if it truly is her mother, burns itself into Elise's retinas until she can see nothing else, even when she closes her eyes. She knows, with sudden, crushing certainty, that every answer she's found has only led to more terrible questions. Elise stumbles up the library basement stairs, clutching the microfiche reel she's hidden in her sweater. Mrs. Kowalski is gone from the reference desk, replaced by a younger woman Elise doesn't recognize. She slips out the front door into the glare of afternoon sun, her legs unsteady, her breath coming in shallow gasps. The stranger's warning echoes in her skull. Go home. Forget what you found. But how can she? How can anyone forget their mother's face in a photograph taken the day before her execution? She walks the 12 blocks back to the Brennan farmhouse in a daze, barely registering the tree-lined streets, the neighbors watering their lawns, the normal rhythms of a town that doesn't know it's harboring secrets. By the time she reaches the white clapboard house with its wraparound porch, the sun is sinking toward the horizon, painting everything in shades of amber and blood. Thomas Brennan's truck is in the driveway. Elise stops at the mailbox, her courage faltering. She'd planned this moment during the walk home, planned to confront him, to demand the truth, to hold up that photograph and watch his face as he tried to explain. But now, standing in the lengthening shadows, she feels small again. 16. Powerless. A little girl who still sometimes calls him Papa when she's half asleep. The screen door creaks open. Thomas steps onto the porch, wiping his hands on a dish towel. "There you are," he calls out, relief evident in his voice. "Margaret was getting worried. Said you didn't tell her where you were going." "I was at the library," Elise says. Her voice sounds distant, hollow. He descends the porch steps, his brow furrowed with concern. "You feeling all right? You look pale." This is her moment. The photograph is right there in her sweater pocket, along with the stolen microfiche reel. She could pull them out now, could watch his face as the mask falls away. But something stops her. Maybe it's the way his eyes search her face with genuine worry. Maybe it's the smell of Margaret's chicken and dumplings wafting through the screen door, a smell that means safety and Sunday dinners and belonging. Maybe it's simple cowardice. Or maybe, and this terrifies her most, it's because part of her doesn't want to know. "I'm fine," she lies. "Just tired." That night, Elise doesn't sleep. She sits at her desk with the photograph and a magnifying glass she borrowed from Thomas's workshop, studying every detail of that grainy image. The warehouse setting. The other men in SS uniforms. Are they also American spies or genuine Nazis? The bound woman who might be her mother, her expression defiant despite the bruises, despite knowing what's coming. And Thomas Brennan, standing, slightly apart from the others, his face unreadable. There's something in his posture Elise didn't notice before. His right hand, hidden partially behind his back. Is he holding something? She adjusts the magnifying glass, squinting at the blurred detail. A key. He's holding a key. Elise's pulse quickens. Why would he be holding a key at an execution? Unless he was planning to let her go. The thought is absurd, wishful thinking, but it plants itself in her mind like a seed. What if the photograph captures the moment before Brennan saved her mother, not before he killed her? What if everything is more complicated than simple guilt or innocence? A soft knock at her door makes her jump. Elise? Thomas's voice, gentle through the wood. Can I come in? She shoves the photograph under her homework papers. It's late. I know, but I saw your light on. A pause. I wanted to talk to you about something. Her throat tightens. Does he know she was digging? Did the stranger from the library contact him? About what? Can I come in? Elise opens the door. Thomas stands in the hallway in his undershirt and work pants, his hair mussed, looking older than she remembers. The lines around his eyes seem deeper tonight, carved by exhaustion or guilt or both. He enters slowly, as if approaching a frightened animal, and sits on the edge of her bed. The mattress springs creak under his weight. You've been different these last few days, he says quietly. Distant, and I think I know why. Elise's heart hammers. You do? Thomas nods, his gaze dropping to his calloused hands. You're 16. It's natural to start wondering about your birth parents, about where you came from. He looks up, his blue eyes steady. I should have talked to you about this sooner. I was afraid. Afraid of what? That you'd want to leave. That knowing the truth about them would make you realize you don't belong here. With us. His voice cracks slightly. Margaret and I, we love you as our own, Elise. But we always knew this day might come. Elise sits in her desk chair, her mind racing. He thinks she's just having normal adoptive child questions. He doesn't know about the trunk, the photographs, the evidence. This is her chance to test him. Tell me about them, she says carefully. My birth parents, how they died. Thomas is quiet for a long moment. When he speaks, his voice is heavy with something that sounds like genuine sorrow. I don't know much. The records from the war are incomplete. I found you in a chapel outside Bastogne in May of '45. You were alone, starving, too traumatized to tell me your name. All you had was a torn photograph of a woman I assumed was your mother. Do you still have it? The photograph? I gave it to you. It's in that small frame on your dresser. Elise turns. There, half hidden behind her lamp, a faded photo of a dark-haired woman, the only remnant of her life before. She's looked at it 1,000 times, trying to remember the face, the voice, anything concrete. But her memories before Thomas found her are scattered, dreamlike, unreliable. She picks up the frame now, studying it in the lamplight. The woman's cheekbones, the widow's peak, the fierce eyes. It's the same woman from the warehouse photograph. She's certain now. I tried to find out what happened to your family, Thomas continues. After the war, I searched records, talked to survivors from the Belgian resistance, but so many people just disappeared. The Nazis kept poor documentation of who they killed in the forests, in the small villages. All I could confirm was that there was a family named Fournier, resistance fighters, who were betrayed to the SS in April of 1944. A mother and father. They had one daughter. How did you confirm it? Thomas's expression grows guarded. Through military intelligence channels. I had access because of my work. What work? Elise presses. You never talk about what you did during the war. The air between them grows taut. Thomas stands, moving to the window, his back to her. I was a soldier. I did what soldiers do. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I can give you. His voice is firm now, almost harsh, a tone she's never heard from him before. Some things from the war need to stay buried, Elise, for everyone's protection. That's what the man at the library said. The words slip out before she can stop them. Thomas whirls around, his face suddenly pale. What man? What library? Elise's mouth goes dry. She's revealed too much. What man, Elise? Thomas crosses the room in 2 strides, gripping her shoulders. Not hard, but urgent. Did someone approach you? Did someone threaten you? The fear in his eyes is real. Whatever else he might be hiding, this terror is genuine. He said I should stop digging, Elise whispers. He knew about the photographs. He knew. She stops, realizing she's just admitted she found the trunk. Thomas releases her, stepping back. His face cycles through emotions too fast to track. Shock, fear, resignation, and finally something that looks like relief. You found them, he says quietly. The files. Elise nods, tears burning her eyes. Thomas sinks into her desk chair, suddenly looking ancient. He covers his face with his hands, his shoulders sagging. For a long moment, the only sound is the ticking of Elise's bedside clock and the distant hum of crickets through the open window. When he finally speaks, his voice is barely audible. I was going to tell you, when you were older, when I thought you could handle it. He looks up, his eyes red-rimmed. I was OSS, Elise, Office of Strategic Services. They recruited me in '43 because I spoke fluent German. My grandmother was from Munich. They gave me a new identity, forged papers, and inserted me into an SS unit in Belgium. To spy. To gather intelligence on deportation operations and resistance networks. He swallows hard. And to save who I could, when I could, without blowing my cover. Did you save my mother? The question hangs between them like a guillotine blade. Thomas doesn't answer immediately. His gaze drifts to the photograph on Elise's dresser, the woman with fierce eyes and dark hair. I tried, he finally whispers. And in those 2 words, Elise hears the truth that will reshape everything she thought she knew about her life. The clock on Elise's nightstand reads 11:30, and downstairs Margaret has gone to bed, trusting her husband and daughter to finish whatever conversation has kept them cloistered away for hours. She doesn't know that confession, once it begins, is like a wound reopening. It doesn't stop bleeding until everything spills out. Thomas Brennan sits with his elbows on his knees, hands clasped, staring at nothing. In the lamplight, he looks less like the sturdy Iowa farmer who raised Elise and more like the haunted soldier he must have been in 1944. Her name was Colette Fournier, he begins, his voice hollow. Your mother. She ran a safe house in Bastogne for Allied pilots shot down over Belgium. The Gestapo had been hunting her network for months. Elise hugs her knees to her chest, sitting on her bed. afraid that any movement might shatter this fragile moment of truth. I'd been embedded with the SS for 7 months by then, long enough that they trusted me, long enough that I'd had to. He stops, swallows. I'd had to participate in things, to maintain my cover, things I'll never forgive myself for, even if they were necessary. The 16 partisans, Elise whispers. Thomas's head snaps up. You read the requisition form. I read all of it, the trial testimony, the OSS memo. He nods slowly, accepting this. 15 of those 16 were already dead when I arrived, executed by the real SS officer I was replacing, a man named Richter who'd been killed in an ambush 2 days prior. My handler told me to sign the paperwork, to make it look like I'd given the order. It would cement my cover. His voice cracks. The 16th prisoner was a 14-year-old boy who'd been running messages for the resistance. He was still alive, wounded but breathing. I could have saved him, Elise. I could have found a way. But I was afraid that showing mercy would expose me, would get me killed and end the intelligence operation that was saving dozens of others. So you let him die. I put him out of his misery. Thomas's hands shake. A single shot, quick, painless, and I've seen his face every night since. The room falls silent except for the soft creak of the house settling and the rustle of leaves outside the window. Elise tries to process this. The calculus of war, the impossible choices, the weight of playing God. What about my mother? She asks quietly. Thomas stands, pacing to the window, his silhouette dark against the moonlight. In April of '44, the Gestapo finally located Colette's network. But they wanted more than just her. They wanted the entire resistance cell, all the safe houses, every contact. So they set a trap. They arrested her, but didn't execute her immediately. They kept her in a warehouse we used for interrogations, hoping she'd break. Did she? Never. There's admiration in his voice, and something deeper. Grief, maybe, or guilt. I was assigned to her case because I spoke French. I was supposed to extract information using whatever methods necessary. Elise's stomach turns. Did you? No. The word is sharp, absolute. I never laid a hand on her. But I also couldn't stop the others when I wasn't there. Every day I'd arrive and find new bruises, new evidence of what they'd done overnight. And every day she'd look at me with those eyes, your eyes, Elise, full of contempt and rage and something else I couldn't identify. What? Recognition. Thomas turns from the window. 3 days into her captivity, she spoke to me in English. Perfect, unaccented English. She said, "You're not one of them." Just like that. 4 words that could have gotten us both killed if anyone had overheard. Elise leans forward. How did she know? I never found out. Maybe the way I stood, the way I held a weapon, some subtle American mannerism I couldn't hide. Or maybe she was just that perceptive. He sits back down, his weight making the chair creak. After that, we had an understanding. When I was alone with her during interrogations, I'd give her water, tend her wounds, pass her information about which safe houses had been compromised so she could warn her network through the prisoner grapevine. You became allies. We became more than that. Thomas's voice drops to barely a whisper. I fell in love with her, Elise, in that God-forsaken warehouse with death surrounding us, knowing every day might be her last. I fell completely, hopelessly in love with your mother. The confession hits Elise like a physical blow. She'd expected many things, but not this. Not love. Did she love you back? Thomas's laugh is bitter, How could she? I wore the uniform of the men who destroyed her country, murdered her friends. Even knowing I was American, even understanding I was trying to help, every time she looked at me, she saw the enemy. He pauses. But near the end, she told me about you, about her daughter who was staying with relatives in the countryside, safe from the Gestapo. She made me promise that if anything happened to her, I'd find you, protect you. Where was my father? My birth father? He'd been killed 3 months earlier. Ambush on a supply run. Thomas rubs his face wearily. Colette was alone, fighting the Nazis while trying to coordinate your safety from a cell. She showed me a photograph she'd hidden in the lining of her jacket. The same one you keep on your dresser. She said, "If I don't survive, find my daughter. Tell her I loved her more than life itself." Tears stream down Elise's face now, unchecked. This is the mother she's tried so hard to remember, the ghost that haunts the edges of her earliest memories, brave and fierce and so loving. "What happened on April 8th? She asks, her voice breaking. "The photograph? The warehouse? You were holding a key?" Thomas closes his eyes. That was the day they ordered her execution. 16 prisoners total, including Colette, scheduled for dawn on April 9th. I'd been trying for days to arrange an escape, but the security was too tight, the risks too high. Then, the night before, my OSS handler finally came through with an extraction plan. I was to get Colette and any other prisoners I could save into the crypt of the Saint-Michel Chapel, where British SOE agents would retrieve them after we staged a false execution. But something went wrong. Everything went wrong. Thomas's voice is hoarse. The photograph you found, that was taken by an SS officer named Klaus Erdmann, a true believer who never trusted me. He'd been watching me, suspecting I was too soft, too sympathetic to prisoners. When he saw me with that key, when he realized I was planning something, he reported me to his superior. Elise's hands grip her bedspread. What did they do? They arrested me, locked me in the same cell block as the prisoners I'd tried to save, scheduled me for execution alongside them. Thomas's voice is hollow now, recounting events from muscle memory rather than emotion. April 9th dawn. They lined us up against the wall. 17 prisoners instead of 16. I was going to die wearing an SS uniform, and nobody would ever know I'd been trying to help. But you survived. The British SOE team arrived early before dawn. They'd gotten word that the extraction was compromised and came in guns blazing, trying to salvage the operation. It was chaos. Gunfire, explosions, prisoners running in every direction. I got separated from Colette in the confusion. I searched for her, called her name, but... He stops, his breath ragged. She was shot. Elise finishes quietly. Thomas nods, tears finally spilling down his weathered cheeks. I found her in the chapel courtyard. She'd made it that far, was trying to reach the crypt. The bullet had hit her spine. She couldn't move her legs, couldn't run anymore. She knew she was dying. What did she say? She said, "Find Elise. Promise me." Thomas's voice breaks completely. I promised. I held her while she died, and I promised I'd find you, protect you, give you the life she wanted for you. And then the British were pulling me away, dragging me to their transport, and I had to leave her there in the dirt with the chapel burning behind us. The room swims in Elise's vision. She's crying openly now, grieving for the mother she never really knew, for the man who loved her enough to risk everything, for the impossible cruelty of war that tears people apart just when they've found each other. Did you love her more than Margaret? The question is out before Elise can stop it. Thomas looks at her with infinite sadness. I love Margaret with everything I have. She's good and kind, and she gave me a life when I thought I was too broken to deserve one. But Colette, he stops, choosing his words carefully. Colette was the woman who made me understand what people are capable of enduring. She made me want to be worthy of her faith in me. And every time I look at you, I see her courage, her fire, her refusal to surrender even when everything was lost. That's why you kept the files. Thomas nods. They're all I have left of her. Proof that she existed, that she mattered, that what we tried to do meant something. I know I should have destroyed them, but I couldn't let her disappear completely. Elise crosses the room and does something she hasn't done since she was small. She climbs into Thomas's lap and lets him hold her while they both cry for the woman they loved. The war that destroyed her, and the years of silence that have kept this grief locked away. Outside, an owl calls in the darkness, and somewhere in the house, Margaret stirs, unaware that the family she's built on kindness and routine is actually built on loss, sacrifice, and a promise made in blood on a Belgian battlefield. But before Elise can find peace in this confession, she needs to know one more thing. The man at the library, she whispers against Thomas's shoulder. Who is he? Why does he want me to stop digging? Thomas stiffens. When he speaks, his voice carries a warning. His name is Klaus Erdmann, the SS officer who tried to expose me. He survived the war, went underground, and has spent the last 3 years hunting everyone connected to that failed execution. Why? Because, Thomas says quietly, I wasn't the only one who escaped that day. There were others, prisoners, resistance fighters, people who saw things that certain powerful men don't want revealed. And Erdmann has been systematically eliminating witnesses, one by one. He thinks I'm a witness? He thinks you know where something is hidden, something your mother gave me right before she died. Thomas pulls back, gripping Elise's shoulders. And he's right. But Elise, you can never tell anyone. Not Margaret, not your friends, no one. Because if word gets out that we have it, a crash downstairs cuts him off. Then Margaret's scream splits the night. Glass shatters in the kitchen, followed by the heavy tread of boots on hardwood. Multiple sets, moving with military precision through the downstairs rooms. Margaret's scream cuts off abruptly, replaced by a man's voice speaking German. Wo ist das Mädchen? Where is the girl? Thomas moves faster than Elise has ever seen him move. He shoves her toward the closet, his face transformed from grieving confessor to soldier in an instant. Hide. Don't come out no matter what you hear. Thomas! Now Elise. She scrambles into the closet just as her bedroom door crashes open. Through the crack in the closet slats, she sees 3 men enter, all wearing dark suits, all carrying weapons. The one in front is tall and gaunt, with silver hair and a dueling scar across his left cheek. Klaus Erdmann. She recognizes him from the library. Captain Brennan? Erdmann says in accented English, his pistol leveled at Thomas's chest. Or should I say, Hauptsturmführer. It's been a long time. Thomas stands perfectly still, hands visible, calculating. You're too late. I don't have what you're looking for. Don't you? Erdmann gestures to his companions, who begin systematically tearing apart Elise's room, ripping through her desk drawers, pulling books from shelves, slashing her mattress. We know Colette Fournier gave you something before she died. A list. Names of collaborators. Nazi sympathizers in positions of power. People who've rebuilt their lives in America, become respectable. That list would destroy hundreds of carefully constructed identities. So that's what this is about. Not just revenge, but self-preservation. Colette died before she could tell me where it was hidden. Thomas lies smoothly. Whatever list existed, it's lost. Erdmann smiles coldly. Then why has the girl been searching through war crimes records? Why did she steal microfiche from the library? She knows something. And you're going to tell us what? One of the men, shorter, with cruel eyes, emerges from the closet, dragging Elise by her arm. She fights, clawing at him, but he's twice her size and trained in violence. He throws her onto the floor at Erdmann's feet. "Leave her alone," Thomas growls, taking a step forward. 3 pistols cock in unison. He freezes. Erdmann crouches beside Elise, his breath smelling of cigarettes and decay. "Where is your mother's list, child? Tell me and we'll leave your family in peace." "I don't know what you're talking about." His hand flashes out, striking her across the face. Pain explodes in her cheek, and she tastes blood. "No!" Thomas lunges forward, but the shorter man drives a fist into his stomach, doubling him over. Another blow to his temple sends him crashing to the floor. "Papa!" The word tears from Elise's throat before she can stop it. Erdmann's smile widens. "Ah, so the little bird has bonded to her captor. How touching." He grabs Elise's chin, forcing her to look at him. "But you should know the truth about your precious." "Papa, did he tell you how many people he killed to maintain his cover? Did he tell you about the families he helped deport to the camps?" He was very convincing in his role, very thorough. He was saving people. He was saving himself. Erdmann releases her roughly. "And now he'll watch you suffer for his sins unless he gives me what I want." A sound from downstairs, Margaret's voice, high and terrified. "Please, I have jewelry, money, take whatever you want." "Bring her up," Erdmann orders. One of his men disappears into the hallway. Moments later, he returns dragging Margaret, whose face is streaked with tears, her nightgown torn at the shoulder. "Thomas!" she gasps, seeing her husband on the floor. "What's happening?" "This doesn't involve her," Thomas says, struggling to his knees. "Let her go. She doesn't know anything." "Perhaps not." Erdmann examines Margaret like she's an insect under glass. "But love makes people cooperative. Tell me where the list is, Captain, or I'll start removing your wife's fingers, one by one." He produces a hunting knife, its blade catching the lamplight. Margaret's sob fills the room. Thomas's face goes white. And Elise. Elise remembers something. The photograph on her dresser. The one of her mother. Thomas said he gave it to her when she was small, that it was all she had from before. But what if it wasn't just a keepsake? What if her mother had hidden the list inside the frame, knowing it would stay with her daughter, overlooked and unremarkable? "It's in the photograph," Elise blurts out. "The frame on my dresser. There's a false back. The list is hidden inside." Thomas's eyes meet hers across the room, shocked, betrayed, desperate. She's just surrendered the one thing keeping them alive. But she has a plan. She hopes. Erdmann gestures to the shorter man, who retrieves the frame and pries open the backing. Several folded papers fall out, yellowed, covered in tiny handwriting. Names, dates, locations, proof of collaboration that would destroy lives, end careers, possibly topple governments. "Finally," Erdmann breathes, unfolding the papers reverently. His men crowd around, reading over his shoulder, their weapons lowered for just a moment. It's all the opening Thomas needs. He explodes into motion, tackling the man nearest Margaret and wrenching the pistol from his grip. A shot rings out, deafening in the small room. The shorter man drops, clutching his shoulder. Thomas pivots, firing again. The third man falls. Erdmann spins, knife raised. But Margaret, sweet, gentle Margaret, who's never hurt anything in her life, swings the desk lamp like a club, catching him across the temple. He staggers, blood streaming down his face. "Run!" Thomas shouts. Elise grabs her mother. Margaret is her mother. She realizes with fierce clarity, not by blood, but by choice. And they flee into the hallway. Behind them, sounds of struggle, bodies hitting walls, grunts of pain, another gunshot, then silence. Elise stops at the top of the stairs, Margaret trembling beside her. "We have to go back. We have to help him." Thomas emerges from the bedroom, limping, blood soaking his shirt from a wound Elise can't identify. "Go, now, out the back, through the cornfield. Don't stop until you reach the Hendersons' farm." "What about you?" "I'll hold them off. Buy you time." He presses the pistol into Elise's hands. Heavy, warm, terrifying. "If anyone follows you, anyone at all, you shoot first and ask questions later. Understand?" "Thomas, no." Margaret starts. He kisses her, hard and desperate. "I love you. Both of you. Now go." A groan from inside the bedroom. Erdmann, recovering. They're out of time. Elise and Margaret run. Down the stairs, through the kitchen where broken dishes litter the floor, out the back door into the August night. The cornfield stretches before them, tall stalks rustling in the breeze, full of shadows and hiding places. They plunge in, the dry leaves cutting their arms, their bare feet finding every sharp rock and stick. Behind them, shouting in German, a gunshot, then another. Margaret stumbles, and Elise catches her. "Keep moving. Don't look back." But Elise does look back, just once. The farmhouse, her home for 11 years, glows in the distance. And in an upper window, she sees a flash, muzzle fire, bright and brief. Then the window goes dark. Papa. She wants to scream, wants to run back, wants to wake up from this nightmare. But Margaret is pulling her forward, and survival instinct, the same instinct that kept her alive in the war, hidden in a chapel while the world burned, takes over. They run through the corn until their lungs burn, until the farmhouse is just a faint glow on the horizon, until the only sounds are their ragged breathing and the whisper of stalks in the wind. Finally, they collapse at the edge of the Hendersons' property. Lights blaze in every window of the neighboring farm. Mr. Henderson must have heard the gunshots, must have called the police. Sirens wail in the distance, growing closer. Elise clutches the pistol in shaking hands and stares back toward home, praying to a God she's not sure she believes in, that Thomas Brennan, spy, soldier, father, survives one more battle. But deep in her heart, where memory and instinct live, she knows. She knows that love, in wartime, always ends in sacrifice, and that some people are born to be heroes, even if the world never knows their names. The sheriff's car pulls up to the Henderson farm at precisely 1:14 in the morning, its red lights painting the cornfield in hellish strokes. But by then, Thomas Brennan has already disappeared, along with Klaus Erdmann and his surviving men, leaving behind only blood, bullet holes, and questions nobody can answer. Sheriff Mallory is a good man, honest and competent, but utterly unprepared for what he finds when he enters the Brennan farmhouse. The kitchen is destroyed, furniture overturned, a German Luger lying beside a spreading pool of blood. Upstairs, Elise's bedroom looks like a war zone, mattress slashed, belongings strewn everywhere, more blood on the floor and walls, but no bodies. "Mrs. Brennan," he says gently, finding Margaret and Elise huddled in the Hendersons' living room wrapped in blankets. Can you tell me what happened? Margaret can't speak. She sits catatonic, staring at nothing, occasionally whispering Thomas's name like a prayer. So Elise tells the story, or a version of it. Home invaders. 3 men, maybe 4. They wanted money, jewelry. Her father fought them off, told her and Margaret to run. She heard gunshots, then nothing. She doesn't mention the list, or Erdmann, or the fact that her father was once an SS officer who fell in love with a resistance fighter. Some truths are too dangerous for small-town sheriffs who believe in orderly explanations. And your father? Sheriff Mallory asks. Where is he now? I don't know. It's the most honest thing she's said all night. The sheriff organizes a search. By dawn, half the county is combing the cornfields, the nearby woods, the roads leading out of Cedar Falls. They find Thomas's truck abandoned 3 miles from the house, keys still in the ignition, blood on the driver's seat, not enough to indicate a fatal wound, but enough to suggest he's badly hurt. Then the trail goes cold. Federal agents arrive on the second day. Not FBI, something else, something shadowy that doesn't advertise its acronym. They set up in the Brennan house, photograph everything, ask the same questions Sheriff Mallory already asked, but with an edge that suggests they already know the answers. One agent, a woman in her 40s with steel-gray hair and penetrating eyes, pulls Elise aside on the 3rd day. I'm Agent Catherine Walsh, she says, and Elise's breath catches at the surname, the same name Thomas used to hide the safety deposit box. I worked with your father during the war. He saved my life in France in '44. Is he alive? I don't know. But I know Klaus Erdmann, and I know why he came here. She lowers her voice. The list your mother compiled, it wasn't just names of collaborators. It documented Operation Paperclip connections, Nazi scientists the U.S. government smuggled into America after the war. People in very high places who don't want their pasts exposed. Elise's mind reels. So my father was protecting war criminals? Your father was protecting you. Agent Walsh's expression softens. Colette didn't give him that list, so he could expose it. She gave it to him as insurance, leverage to keep you safe if anyone ever came looking. If Thomas is still alive, he's using that insurance now, trading the list for his life and yours. But I gave Erdmann the list. It's gone. Agent Walsh almost smiles. You gave him a list. Thomas Brennan didn't survive 4 years of espionage by being careless. If I know him, he made copies, hid them in multiple locations. The question is, where? Elise thinks back to that night, to Thomas's confession, to his hands shaking as he described holding her dying mother. He'd said the files in the attic were all he had left of Colette. But what if that wasn't true? What if there was something else, something he never told her about? The chapel, Elise whispers. The one where he found me. Saint-Michel, outside Bastogne. Agent Walsh's eyes sharpen. What about it? He said my mother was trying to reach the crypt when she died, that the British were supposed to extract prisoners from there. What if she hid something in that crypt? What if Thomas went back? Bastogne is 6,000 miles away. But someone could retrieve it, someone with resources. Elise meets the agent's gaze, someone who owes him a debt. Agent Walsh is quiet for a long moment, then she nods slowly. I'll make some calls. She leaves, and Elise is alone with her thoughts and her grief. Margaret has been sedated by the doctor, finally sleeping after 3 days of anguish. The house is empty except for the ghosts. Her mother Colette's ghost in the attic files. Thomas's ghost in the blood-stained floorboards. Her own ghost in the girl she was before she learned the truth about her family. That evening, as the sun sets over the Iowa cornfields, Elise returns to her room. The sheriff's department has finished processing it as a crime scene, but nobody has cleaned up. She does it herself, gathers the torn books, refolds clothes, sweeps up broken glass. When she reaches the desk, she finds her diary, the one where she'd hidden the original photograph of Thomas in his SS uniform. The diary is blood-spattered, but intact. She opens it, and a folded note falls out, written in Thomas's handwriting, pressed between the pages. Her hands shake as she unfolds it. Elise. If you're reading this, I'm either dead or in hiding. Either way, you deserve the complete truth. Your mother's list wasn't the only thing she gave me. In her final moments, she pressed something else into my hand, a key to a safe deposit box in Brussels. Inside that box are documents that prove Operation Paperclip went deeper than anyone knows. Scientists, yes, but also intelligence officers, propaganda experts, even SS commanders who were deemed useful to American interests. Men who should have hanged at Nuremberg, but instead got new names, new lives, new positions of power. I've kept those documents hidden for 4 years, using them only when necessary to protect you from people who'd rather their wartime sins stay buried. But Klaus Erdmann isn't acting alone. He's backed by some of those very men, powerful, connected, desperate to eliminate any evidence of their past. If I don't survive, you need to know. The key is hidden in your mother's photograph. The real one. Not the frame I gave you, but the original torn photo I found in your pocket when I pulled you from that chapel. I had it restored and sealed inside a locket, which I buried beneath the apple tree in our backyard, the one we planted together on your first day in America. Retrieve the locket, retrieve the key, and finish what your mother started. I'm sorry I dragged you into this war. I thought I could keep you safe by keeping you ignorant. I was wrong. But I'm not sorry I found you. Not sorry I loved you. Not sorry you became my daughter. Whatever happens, remember, you're Colette's child. And that means you're stronger than you know. Papa Elise reads the letter 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she folds it carefully, tucks it back into her diary, and walks downstairs. The apple tree stands in the backyard, its branches heavy with late summer fruit. She and Thomas planted it on a crisp October morning in 1945, her first week in America. He'd let her dig the hole herself, teaching her the English words: earth, roots, growth. Now she digs again, using a spade from the garden shed, tearing through soil and memory. 2 feet down, her shovel hits something solid, a metal box sealed with wax. Inside the box, a silver locket on a delicate chain. Inside the locket, a restored photograph of Colette Fournier on one side, and on the other, pressed into the silver backing, a small brass key stamped with a Brussels bank insignia. Elise closes the locket and fastens it around her neck, feeling its weight settle against her heart. She is 16 years old. She has lost one father and might lose another. She lives in a peaceful Iowa town where her biggest worry should be homework and boys and what dress to wear to the fall dance. But she is also Colette Fournier's daughter. And that means the war isn't over. Not yet. The next morning, Elise finds Agent Walsh at the sheriff's station. "I need to go to Belgium," she says without preamble. Agent Walsh doesn't ask why. She simply nods and says, "I'll arrange it." 3 days later, Elise boards a plane to Brussels, carrying only a small suitcase and the locket hidden beneath her blouse. Margaret, weak but recovering, holds her at the airport and whispers, "Bring him home if you can. But if you can't, make sure what he did meant something." "I will," Elise promises. The plane lifts into the September sky, carrying her away from the only home she's ever known and toward a reckoning 4 years in the making. Below, Cedar Falls grows smaller and smaller until it's just a smudge on the landscape. A place where ordinary people live ordinary lives, unaware that history has roots that reach deep into the soil, tangling with secrets that refuse to stay buried. And in a farmhouse on the edge of town, Margaret Brennan waters the apple tree her husband planted, praying to whatever gods listen that her family might somehow survive the harvest that's coming. Brussels in September tastes of rain and diesel fumes, a city still rebuilding itself from the war's devastation, where bombed-out buildings stand beside hastily erected new construction, like old scars beside fresh wounds. Elise arrives with Agent Walsh and 2 other operatives whose names she's not given. Ghosts in suits who speak in clipped sentences and carry weapons she pretends not to notice. The bank is a gray stone fortress in the financial district, its brass plaques polished to brightness despite the drizzle. Elise presents the key at the main desk, her heart hammering. The clerk, an elderly man with spectacles and a bureaucrat's careful manner, examines it, then her identification papers, forged by Agent Walsh's people to show she's 21, not 16, then the key again. "One moment, mademoiselle." He disappears into a back room. Minutes stretch like hours. Through the bank's tall windows, Elise watches pedestrians hurry past, ordinary people living ordinary lives, and she envies them with an ache that feels physical. The clerk returns with a metal box, sets it on the counter. "You may use the private room." Inside the windowless room, under the harsh glare of a single bulb, Elise opens the box with trembling fingers. Documents, dozens of them, personnel files, shipping manifests, immigration records. Names she recognizes from newspapers, a senator, a NASA engineer, a federal judge, and beside each name, their wartime identity, SS Obersturmbannführer, Gestapo liaison, concentration camp administrator. The evidence is meticulous, damning, impossible to refute. But there's something else in the box. A smaller envelope, addressed in Colette Fournier's handwriting. "Pour ma fille," for my daughter. Elise's vision blurs. She opens the envelope with shaking hands. "My darling Elise, if you're reading this, I am gone, and the world has somehow continued without me. I hope whoever delivers this letter has also given you love, safety, and the childhood I could not provide. The documents in this box are my final mission, proof that evil does not always face justice, that powerful men rewrite history to erase their sins. I compiled this evidence knowing it would make me a target, knowing I might not survive to see it used. But some truths are worth dying for. I want you to know, your father and I loved you more than life itself. We fought the Nazis not just for Belgium or for freedom, but so you could grow up in a world where children don't hide in cellars, where families aren't torn apart by uniforms and ideology. We failed, in the end. I will not see you grow up. I will not teach you to be brave, to be kind, to fight for what's right even when it costs everything. But I believe you will learn these things anyway, because you are our daughter, and courage is in your blood. Use these documents wisely. Expose the men who escaped justice, but protect yourself first. The world needs truth, but I need you to live. All my love, Maman, the dictator. Letter is dated April 7th, 1944. Written the day before Colette was captured. as if she knew what was coming and wanted to leave something behind besides grief. Elise sits in that sterile room and cries, for the mother she barely remembers, for the father she might have lost, for the innocence that's been stripped away layer by layer until only this raw truth remains. When Agent Walsh enters 20 minutes later, she finds Elise dry-eyed and resolved. "We need to go to Bastogne," Elise says, "to the chapel." "Why?" "Because if Thomas is alive, that's where he'd go, to finish what Colette started." They drive through the Belgian countryside in a black sedan, past fields still scarred with trenches and craters, past villages where every third building is missing a wall or roof. The land remembers, even if people choose to forget. Saint-Michel Chapel sits on a hillside outside Bastogne, a medieval stone structure that survived centuries of wars only to be gutted by fire in 1945. The roof is gone, replaced with temporary tarps. The walls are smoke-blackened, but the crypt beneath, that endures. "Stay close," Agent Walsh murmurs as they approach. "If Erdmann's men are here—" They are. One of the operatives points to fresh tire tracks in the mud. 3, maybe 4 hours old. They enter through the shattered doorway, weapons drawn. Inside, the chapel is skeletal. Charred pews pushed aside, weeds growing through cracked floor stones, empty window frames that let in slanting afternoon light. The entrance to the crypt is a stone stairway descending into darkness. Elise starts down before anyone can stop her. Agent Walsh curses softly and follows, flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. The air grows colder with each step, thick with the smell of earth and old death. At the bottom, a vaulted chamber lined with stone shelves where monks once stored bones. Now those shelves are empty except for dust and spiders, and in the center of the room, slumped against a pillar, Thomas Brennan. "Papa!" Elise runs to him, drops to her knees. He's alive. Barely. His shirt is soaked with blood from a wound in his side, his face gray with pain and blood loss. But his eyes open when he hears her voice, and something like relief crosses his features. "Elise." His voice is a rasp. "You shouldn't be here. Neither should you. We need to get you to a hospital." "No time." He grips her hand with surprising strength. "Erdmann is coming. He knows about this place. Knows I'd come back here. He's been hunting me across Belgium, but I led him here deliberately. This is where it ends." "Where what ends?" Thomas reaches into his jacket and pulls out a small recording device, the kind used for dictation. "I've spent 4 days recording everything. Every name from Colette's list. Every crime documented in those files. Every piece of evidence. This tape contains the complete truth about Operation Paperclip's darkest secrets." "Why not just give them the documents?" "Because documents can be seized, destroyed, suppressed. But this—" He holds up the tape. "I've arranged for copies to be delivered simultaneously to newspapers in 6 countries. If I don't make a phone call by 6 o'clock tonight, they publish everything. Erdmann knows this. That's why he's coming, to stop the call." Footsteps echo from the stairway above. Multiple sets, moving with tactical precision. Agent Walsh positions herself at the base of the stairs, her weapon aimed upward. The 2 operatives flank the chamber's other entrance, a narrow tunnel that leads to the chapel's original ossuary. "It's over, Brennan." Erdmann's voice carries down the stone stairs, bouncing off ancient walls. "Give me the tape and you can live. You and your daughter both." "And if I don't?" Thomas calls back, struggling to stand. Elise supports him, feeling how much weight he's lost, how fever-hot his skin is. Then you die here, in the same place Colette died. Poetic, don't you think? Thomas looks at Elise, and in his eyes she sees a decision already made. When I tell you to run, he whispers, you take that tunnel to the ossuary. It comes out behind the chapel. Don't look back, don't stop. Agent Walsh will cover you. I'm not leaving you. You're Colette's daughter, and that means you survive. You finish this. He presses the tape into her hands. 6 o'clock. There's a phone in the village priest's house, half a mile east. Make the call. Expose them all. Papa, please. He kisses her forehead, and she smells blood and sweat and the soap he's used every morning since she's known him. I love you, little bird. Your mother would be so proud. Then he shoves her toward the tunnel just as gunfire erupts. Agent Walsh returns fire, her muzzle flash strobing the crypt in hellish snapshots. The operatives engage from their positions, creating crossfire, and Thomas, wounded, dying Thomas, pulls a pistol from his belt and advances toward the stairs, drawing fire away from Elise. Go, he roars. Elise runs. Through the narrow tunnel, crawling over bones and debris, the tape clutched to her chest like a talisman. Behind her, gunfire echoes and echoes, punctuated by shouts in German and English, by the wet sounds of bullets finding flesh. She emerges behind the chapel into dying afternoon light. The village spire is visible to the east, across a field of wild grass. She runs toward it, lungs burning, tears streaming, the tape's weight the only thing keeping her tethered to reality. A final gunshot cracks through the air, then silence. Elise doesn't stop running, doesn't look back, doesn't let herself think about what that silence means. She reaches the priest's house at 5:47. Father Michel, an elderly man with kind eyes who remembers the war, who remembers hiding refugees in his cellar, asks no questions. He simply points to the phone. Elise dials the number Thomas made her memorize. A woman answers in French. The package is ready for delivery, Elise says, the code phrase feeling absurd and vital at once. Confirmed, the woman replies. Delivery in progress. It's done. By tomorrow morning, newspapers across Europe and America will publish the truth about Operation Paperclip's darkest chapter. Men in power will fall. Careers will end. And the ghosts of concentration camp victims will finally have their justice. 4 years late, but no less deserved. Elise hangs up and collapses into Father Michel's armchair, shaking uncontrollably. Child, the priest says gently, who do you need me to pray for? Everyone, Elise whispers. Everyone who didn't deserve to die but did anyway. He prays in Latin while the sun sets over Bastogne, painting the sky the color of old blood and new hope. Justice, Elise learns, tastes like ash and feels like an open wound. But it's still justice. Agent Walsh finds Elise 3 hours later in the priest's garden, sitting beneath a pear tree with her knees pulled to her chest, staring at nothing. The older woman's face tells the story before her words do. There are some silences that carry more weight than screams. We recovered 2 bodies from the crypt, Walsh says quietly, sitting beside Elise on the stone bench. Klaus Erdmann and one of his men. The other operatives are wounded but stable. Elise's throat closes. And Thomas? Gone. We found a trail of blood leading to the ossuary tunnel. Then nothing. Either he crawled away to die somewhere private, or... She pauses. Or he survived long enough to disappear. Again. You don't believe that? I believe Thomas Brennan has survived impossible things before. Walsh's voice carries a forced optimism that doesn't reach her eyes. The man infiltrated the SS for 2 years. He's escaped death more times than anyone has a right to. If anyone could survive a gut shot and a firefight, it's him. But Elise heard that final gunshot, heard the silence that followed. She knows. The newspapers break the story on September 14th, 1948. Headlines scream across front pages in 6 languages. Nazi war criminals hidden in U.S. government. Operation Paperclip exposed. Collaborators unmasked. Within 72 hours, 3 senators resign. A NASA program director is arrested. A federal judge disappears before he can be taken into custody. The scandal metastasizes, touching intelligence agencies and military contracts and corporate boardrooms. And in Cedar Falls, Iowa, Margaret Brennan reads the papers with shaking hands and understands, finally, why her husband kept secrets, why he taught their daughter to be brave, why he kissed her that night like a man saying goodbye. Elise returns home on September 20th. The farmhouse feels enormous and empty, haunted by absences that can't be filled. Margaret holds her without speaking, and they stand in the kitchen where Thomas used to make pancakes on Sunday mornings, where he'd dance with Margaret to radio music, where he'd taught Elise the English words for family and home and love. "Do you think he's alive?" Margaret asks one evening, 3 weeks after Bastogne. Elise wants to lie, wants to offer hope. But Colette taught her, through that final letter, through her defiant eyes in the warehouse photograph, that truth matters more than comfort. "No," she says softly. "I think he's with her now, with my mother. I think he's finally at peace." Margaret nods, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Then we'll live for him. We'll make sure what he did meant something." They plant a second apple tree beside the first one, for Thomas, for Colette, for all the people who fought in shadows so others could live in light. Elise digs the hole herself, her hands remembering the shape of the work, the weight of the earth. As she packs soil around the sapling's roots, she finds something buried, shallow, a metal tin, freshly placed, wrapped in oilcloth. Inside, a letter in Thomas's handwriting, dated September 9th, 1948, the day he disappeared into Belgium. Elise, if you're reading this, you made the call. You exposed the truth. You finished what your mother and I started. I'm proud of you. Prouder than I have words to express. By the time you find this letter, I'll be gone, either dead or in hiding so deep that even I won't be able to find my way back. There are still people who want me silenced, still secrets I carry that make me dangerous. As long as I'm near you, you're a target. So I'm doing what I should have done 4 years ago. I'm disappearing completely, becoming a ghost. Maybe I'll resurface someday when the world forgets, when the men who hunt me are dead or powerless. Maybe I won't. But you need to live, Elise. Not just survive, live. Go to college, fall in love. Build something beautiful in this broken world. Don't let the war define you the way it defined me. Margaret will take care of you. She's stronger than she looks, and she loves you as much as I do. Be patient with her grief. It's the price we pay for loving deeply. One more thing. In the bank box in Brussels, beneath the documents, there's an envelope with money, enough to pay for your education, to give you choices. Colette wanted you to have opportunities she never did. Use it. Make her proud. And remember, you were never claimed. You were chosen. By both your mothers, by me, by Margaret. You were worth every risk, every sacrifice, every moment of fear. You are loved. You are free. You are exactly who you're supposed to be. Your father, Thomas Elise, reads the letter twice, then folds it carefully and places it in her pocket beside the locket she wears every day. Behind her, Margaret stands at the kitchen window watching, her silhouette backlit by the warm glow of home. The apple trees stand side by side, their branches still small, but reaching skyward with determined growth. In a few years, they'll bear fruit. In a decade, they'll provide shade. In a generation, children who never knew Thomas Brennan will climb their branches and never guess that beneath their roots lie the buried secrets of people who loved fiercely enough to die for strangers. Elise returns to school that fall. Her classmates whisper about the scandal, about her family's mysterious involvement, but she ignores them. She studies hard, applies to colleges, writes essays about justice and sacrifice and the weight of inherited memory. On her 18th birthday, she receives a package postmarked from Argentina. No return address, just a small wooden box containing a pressed flower and a note in handwriting that might be Thomas's or might be a stranger's. The apples will be sweet this year. She doesn't tell Margaret, doesn't tell Agent Walsh. Some mysteries are meant to stay unsolved, some hopes too fragile to expose to scrutiny. Instead, she presses the flower between the pages of her mother's letter and adds it to the collection of relics she keeps. Colette's photograph, Thomas's confession, the locket with the key. Evidence that she existed, that they all existed, that their choices mattered. By 1950, the scandal has faded from headlines. New crises emerge. New villains capture attention. The men exposed by Colette's list either face justice or slip away into carefully constructed new lives. The world, as always, moves forward. But in Cedar Falls, beneath an apple tree planted by a father and daughter who understood that some battles never truly end, the soil remembers. Roots dig deep, tangling with buried secrets, drawing nourishment from the complicated truths of people who were neither purely good nor entirely damned, just human, flawed, trying desperately to do right in a world designed for wrong. Elise Brennan graduates valedictorian in 1951. She gives a speech about inherited responsibility, about finishing the work of those who came before, about planting trees whose shade will never sit beneath. Margaret cries in the audience, and if there's an empty seat beside her where Thomas should be sitting, nobody mentions it. Some absences are too sacred for commentary. That summer, Elise leaves for university, history and journalism, because stories matter, because truth is the only weapon that outlasts violence. She kisses Margaret goodbye on the porch of the farmhouse, promises to write every week, and boards the bus with a suitcase full of clothes and a heart full of ghosts. As the bus pulls away, she looks back one last time. The apple trees stand like sentries beside the house, their branches heavy with late summer fruit. And for just a moment, trick of light, exhaustion, wishful thinking, she sees two figures beneath them, a woman with dark hair and fierce eyes, a man with weathered hands and a gentle smile, her parents, both sets, all of them, watching her leave, letting her go, trusting she'll carry their stories forward into whatever future she builds. The dead don't leave us. They live in the choices we make, the battles we fight, the trees we plant for children we'll never meet. Elise turns forward, toward the road ahead, toward a life she'll construct from the rubble of war and secrets and love that transcended every boundary meant to contain it. And somewhere in Belgium, in Argentina, in the spaces between confirmed and denied, Thomas Brennan, if he still exists, waters an apple tree and wonders if his daughter understands yet that rescue and claiming are not the same thing. That love, real love, always sets you free. They say that on certain autumn evenings in Cedar Falls, when the light slants gold across the cornfields, you can hear a man's voice singing French lullabies near the old Brennan place. Songs a Belgian resistance fighter once sang to her daughter, passed down through the only father who knew the words. If this story moved you, if it made you think about the secrets families carry and the price of justice, leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, and subscribe. Because every story we tell keeps memory alive, and some truths are too important to forget.